Hey, everybody, and welcome to A Balanced Life with Dr. Jacquie. Today, we're going to have some amazing conversations as we begin our series on putting in the work. Today, we're going to be talking about what it means to get on this entrepreneur journey. I know it's not easy, and many of you have been thinking about it. Some of you have been riffed. We are certainly sorry about that, but you're going to find your way. Some of you have gotten these amazing retirement packages and aren't really sure exactly how to mind your money. But then in addition to that, there are all these other things that are going on in our life, our health, our mental well-being, and other illnesses. And we're going to be talking today in a sense of how do we keep our bodies in check while we're going through a variety of things that life throws at us. So today we're going to be joined by Pam Sams of Jackson Wealth Strategies, as well as Dr. Jessica Howard of Howard Chiropractic Clinic. So ladies, let's kind of jump right in. In this season, we started out the year kind of knowing that we were going to be put in, I'll just use the word pickle because I got so many other adjectives I'd like to use, but I shall refrain from using them. But what we do today is we find ourselves in this space of really a lot of uncertainty. And people are seeking what to do next because January took us for a loop. February kind of knocked us off our square. And in March, we were like, what the hell is going on? And so as we dive into this conversation of how people can put in the work, get prepared for what life has to offer, I want to start with Dr. Jessica first, because I recognize that there are people who have skills, gifts, and talents who say, I really would like to become a doctor, whether it's a MD, an OD, a PhD, any of the other related medical and health professions, but then they don't know how to get started. You've been with us before and you talked to us a little bit about your journey, but Dr. Jessica, talk to us about your chiropractic journey and how did you get here?
Right. Well, thank you, Dr. Jacquie. And it's a pleasure to be on again. How I started was I had to push myself out there. I was working for a doctor and I was working countless hours. I was seeing 250 patients a week by myself. I was working 5 days a week and being told that if I wanted to make more money, I needed to see more people. And that was stress enough on my body. And I figured since I was making this chiropractor a lot of money, why not I not go out on my own? So that's how I started. And going out on my own started as not having a single client. I did my research. I looked to see where is a good place to have a chiropractor business, where it's not saturated in the market. And I sat down and I started doing a budget. How can I do this chiropractic thing on a shoestring budget? And that's how I basically got started. Next year, I celebrate 10 years in business, and I'm grateful that I'm still here. And I did that by taking care of each client one by one, taking care of folks how I should, being honest. And that's basically how I got there. I just started. I was pushed into it, and I was determined to keep going. It was uncertain was I was going to make it or fail, but I was determined to show up every single day and to keep pushing. So that's how I got here.
I like that because a part of the putting in the work gets us to this place of saying, I have to sometimes take ownership of what I want in my life and for my life. I want to do a couple of follow-ups before I ask Pam some money questions, because you said you were pushed into it. And oftentimes, there are people right now who are watching. They are like up to here in stress. They are feeling it in a certain way that drives them crazy. But while at the same time, Dr. Jessica, they are not necessarily doing the things that are required for them to say, you know what, I can go. I really can leave right now. So first, the emotional component that you had to work it out in your brain to say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that leap of faith.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, you got to believe in yourself that you can do it. Right. That's the first thing, knowing that you can do it and actually taking that first step. There's never going to be a perfect time. Right now is the perfect time. It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. You have to figure it out. But the first step is knowing that you can do it. All things are going to work out. You can do it. That's the first step. Emotionally regulating yourself to say that, yes, I can do this, because the entrepreneur journey is long. So yes, I can do this.
So let's talk to Pam about this entrepreneurial journey being long, because they have to be some long dollars. Pam, come on in and join us, because, I'm listening to Dr. Jessica talk. And of course, she came with, knowledge and expertise. Because listen, y'all, she did say she didn't try to take any of her clients with her that she had. She didn't ask any of them to go with her because there are a lot of things that you can't do professionally that are unethical. So she said she started from nothing. She had an idea, a passion, and a dream. Pam, what does an idea, a passion, and a dream look like in dollars and cents? Because a lot of people are out there, I got hope, I got passion, I got a dream, I got a side hustle. I ain't got no money.
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to figuring out where you need to be with your day-to-day, your expenses. So, if you can get, I always bring up the budget because that's kind of key on what does your lifestyle look like. And then even if you have to strike out on your own and go the bare minimum on what do you need to sustain your household, then that's what you need to focus in on. How much do I need to make to run my household? And then, of course, you may not be paying yourself for quite some time. I'm sure Jessica can attest to that. Really just putting more back into the business, doing your day-to-day budget, and not seeing immediate growth from the beginning. But as you start putting those building blocks together, one client at a time, one patient at a time, as Jessica had mentioned before, is that where you focus in on is really understanding what does it take to run your household on, even if it's bare minimum, in order to get started.
So that getting started part, Jessica, y'all all three come on in because clients, patients, and pricing. And I mentioned, Jessica, you said that you did this budget, but you're also in a facility and in a space. I'm going to say this because I'm almost at a loss for words because I watch individuals who are in the medical profession, Pam and Jessica, and they want to hang their own shingle. And sometimes they forget the cost that they need to count. So both of you, Jessica, what are some of the costs that you had to count? You said you did research in the area and then you found what you were looking for to give you the business that you needed. But then Pam also mentioned that you have to see how many clients do I need? How many do I need to see? But not taking you back to that stress, Jessica, of seeing clients that your other employer was asking you to have. Where did that balance come in and what were some of the costs that you counted as an entrepreneur in your business field?
Well, definitely the main cost is your service. Can you make money from the service that you're going to give? So valuing, pricing that service correctly. Because if you're undervaluing that service, when that service comes in, but it doesn't help cover the lights, the water, the rent, which is the main thing, typically when we hang up our shingles, keeping that roof over the practice's head and also payroll, you have to make sure that your service is being valued at the right price. So that's definitely number one. I do piggyback on Pam talking about how to do this on a shoestring budget or do it bare minimum. That is true. Your overhead should not be high. You don't need the $10,000 software system. The $150 works just fine. So you have to learn how to also practice, give good quality service, bare minimum as well, and making sure that you're keeping your costs low as best as possible without it, quote unquote, looking raggedy, right? You still want to be able to give the best possible service. So your service, number one, has to be enough that you can keep a roof over your head and the practice's head is what I say for sure. And also making sure that your bare minimum is also affordable is what I say.
Okay, that's interesting. Pam, talk to us because when Jessica said services, building, shingle, and rent, I was like, but you got your household mortgage, and then you also have your business lease. You've got your utilities at your home, but you got utilities and other things at your business. And so now you're doing double. How do we help people, put that down on paper, Pam, in dollars and cents without becoming overwhelmed? Because sometimes counting the cost, you just throw your hands up and say, maybe another time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. People fall into that, pit of despair. It's like, I will have all these dreams and these hopes, but then you start putting it on paper and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work out. So of course, I always say, put down all of your, your household expenses. That's what's going to, your lifestyle, and then all of your business expenses and what that's going to look like. And like Jessica said, that's where you focus in on how you're going to price your services. You need to make sure you have your office space, your overhead, but then what are you going to pay yourself out to afford the lifestyle on the household side as well. So you don't want to undercut your costs as well. And then in the beginning, maybe you, get some financing. There's SBA that's available. If people believe in your dreams, there's family that can loan you money. I believe I read somewhere Jeff Bezos, his mom took some of her retirement money to fund Amazon earlier on. So there are some ways to also get some funding if you need it, but really getting it down on paper. What does it take for your lifestyle in terms of your household expenses, and what does it take to run your business? And then hopefully you can go ahead and transfer what you make out of your business to run your lifestyle and your household.
So before we go to break, y'all, let's talk about that for a moment, because now this, for y'all who are watching, this is for all of y'all out there who have asked every family member for money every time you have some harebrained idea. And we're not talking about those today. We are talking about legitimate businesses that can be scaled up, that can survive and thrive. Jessica, what are some of the top 2 things, or what are your top 2 things when it comes to the possibility of borrowing money from family and friends versus a lending institution? You have warning signs. What do you got to say?
All right, top 2 things. I would say, one, before you strike out, try to have a little money saved. Let's start there. Have a little bit of change in your pocket. And 2, people that you trust who really support your dream, don't lend from your uncle who gonna want that money back in 2 days, because it ain't come back in 2 days. Right? It's going to come back after a year or 2 in business. But people who trust you and truly, truly support your dream. But I would honestly say have some money saved to the side. And even if it's, like Pam said, like your household income, like, for a month, you need $5,000. Have that saved to the side so that you can feel a little bit calm and secure. But having a little bit of money to the side will definitely help. But those are my top 2 things. Have something saved for yourself. And then people who really trust and believe in your dream, who's not going to want you to get rich quick or success quick, because it does take time.
Pam, what do you say about that ROI?
Definitely have some. It definitely helps if you come to the table trying to borrow money, that you have some skin in the game, that you have some saved up as well. And number 2 is really come up with a business plan. If you come up with, to me, and you had a viable business plan on looking at how are you going to get clients, how are you going to get patients, what does the long game look like, kind of the 1, 3, 5, 10 year, then we can talk. Without that, and you just come up with what you said, Dr. Jacquie, is a harebrained schemes. Like, have you thought it out? How is this going to work? Having some forethought and had it written down in a business plan, even if it's a 1-pager, you have put some thought into it on how you were going to make money. Then, you can probably look at lending some. But as Jessica had said, you don't want to borrow money from somebody. It's like, how's that business growing? It's been a month, can I get some? No, you don't want that. You have to show them this is probably a 3, 5, 10-year plan. At least 5, because they always say you're in business for at least 5 years, and then you can kind of start to see some of the light at the end of the tunnel. So having somebody that will realize that it may take some time.
I like that. Hey, y'all, when we come back after the break, we're going to keep diving into this entrepreneur's journey, because putting in the work isn't easy, but it's doable when you have passion and purpose connected together. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just 2 millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Welcome back, everybody. And as you can see, putting in the work to toward your goals and your dreams, being an entrepreneur does require you to put some effort into it. I mean, really thinking about what it takes to not only start the business, but to sustain the business. And I'm going to have this little one-on-one with Pam Sam simply because she knows where the money's at. So Pam, let's talk about that for a moment, because who you are and in your business. And I know I ask you this all the time. So tell the people again who you are and what you do. But I want to dive into this dollars dialogue, because it takes money to not only start a business, but to sustain one.
Definitely. So who I am, Pamela Sams. I am the president and owner of Jackson Sams Wealth Strategies. I started my entrepreneur journey 23 years ago, actually out of a pivot and a transition. My MBA is actually in marketing and advertising. That's my undergraduate and my MBA program. And then probably late 90s, early 2000s, of course, what happens if most people, with most businesses where they cut is basically marketing and advertising dollars. So I took a sabbatical during that time period, trying to figure out what my next best step was. Unfortunately, during that time period as well, I had a family event. My dad got sick and ultimately passed away. During that time, and with my MBA program, I also had got a minor in financial management. And so that was where I focused in on. Went marketing first, end up in financial management. Was figuring I was going to go kind of this whole Wall Street and all of that, I guess, illustrious looking things in financial services. And then, like I said, a life event happened. So I put that to the side for a while, figuring out where I wanted to do next. Then my dad got sick, leaving my mom as a widow after 50 years of marriage. And so kind of the light bulb went off, helping her with her money and her finances, making that transition to becoming a widow. I figured there were other women similar to my mother who may not have had the guidance. So that's when I hung out my shingle a year and a half later, really to start Jackson Sams Wealth Strategies to focus on financial wellness for women, because we live longer and we need resources, but we may not have the educational, the financial literacy around what we need to do with our money.
You bring up several key points, because oftentimes it is a pivot that causes us to pivot. Life happens, and oftentimes we're not ready for it because we think everything is going to stay the same. Nothing challenging is going to happen to us. And, in this decade, we've all experienced COVID. Prior to that, we experienced 9/11. And prior to that, there was Oklahoma City bombing. And all of these different events in the world have a tendency to not only shape what happens to us, but how we dive into business. You mentioned about how you leveraged your skill set and who you were and what you do. From a money perspective, how do we help people who do have skills determine it's a good time to start a business? We talked in the previous block about, having some money put aside, knowing what you're good at. But some people just don't have the wherewithal to say, I can do this. But you've got great skills. You spent years working for other people, helping their bottom line, but oftentimes are triggered when it comes time to do it for yourself. How do we get out of that pit? And does money play a part in us not wanting to take that leap?
Definitely. Of course, sometimes we get into our heads, what I call those negative Nancy's that pop up, that we can't do this, or, you've been doing the job basically for somebody else. It's always says that entrepreneurs really make somebody else rich, and you're kind of the wedge or the widget, basically making that happen. And you can do that on your own. It's just really getting out of your head and figuring out what do you need to do. So really figuring out, hey, I got this skill set. Maybe you start kind of this side hustle or doing it on the side at first, so you can still have your 9 to 5 where you're building up a little bit of savings, as Jessica had mentioned before, to go ahead and take that leap. Once you have enough saved and you feel comfortable, then maybe making that transition. Go back to your employer, say, hey, maybe if you go part-time while you figure this other thing out. Sometimes people are willing to work with you. If not, then that's where you take that leap of faith to bet on yourself, because it'll work out. You have the skill set. It's really just getting out of your head and throwing that negative Nancy out the door.
So Pam, how did you get so smart? Because I can do a lot of things, and I'm learning to manage my money. I can balance a checkbook. I know what my, ROI is. I know my accounts receivable. I understand all of those things. But you speak about financial literacy, and that is a language that many people just don't understand, and they shy away from it. What does financial literacy look like today? And what are some of the key things people should know if we want to say we're literate financially?
Yeah. So financial literacy really starts with understanding how money works, really. And what I do, and I probably shared it before, is kind of this matrix of financial wellness. So there's kind of 4 key areas that I focus in on, or you need to focus in on. What kind of number 1 is cash management. Where does your money go? What's your budget? What's your income? What are your loans? Who do you own? Who do you owe? What are your debts? Really figuring out your cash flow and your cash management piece. The second area to really focus in is on your protection needs, life insurance, homeowner insurance, disability, all of those, figuring out what do you have and how does it work in your life. And then, of course, investing, figuring out how are you going to grow your money for the long term. You're not going to save your money. You're not going to save to wealth. You need to invest. And a lot of people are a little bit leery and scared of that, despite in spite of what's been going on with the stock market. But you do need to invest. And then the other area that I focus in on in terms of financial wellness is your legacy plan, your estate plan. You don't want to leave this plane, so to speak, transition to the next plane, leaving a mess for somebody else to figure out. You want to have it well written, will or trust or things like that. So learning about how money works in each of those key areas of your financial life will make you financially literate. You just need to make sure you have those things in place and that you are ultimately financially well.
I like that. I want to bring Dr. Jessica in on this conversation because the things that Pam are talking about are not only for you personally, but they also tie into us professionally. And Jessica, as you're listening to what Pam is talking about, I began to realize that this also affects you as a business owner and the way in which you look at sustaining your business. When you think about the things you've done and are doing, having, this stop out, and I'm curious to know how you manage COVID, because as a business owner, we oftentimes don't think of world events impacting us in the generation that we live in. So when you think about financial literacy for yourself as a business, what are some of the things you have in place? Because you're considered what's called the key woman or key man. You are the backbone of your business. And you have employees. What happens if something happens to Dr. Jessica? And are they prepared, and are you prepared?
Right. Well, I actually experienced this when I became a mother. I had to be on bed rest for a month before I had my baby, and I'm the key woman. So I had to figure it out. And what I did was I leaned on another friend of mine who is a chiropractor. She's actually my personal chiropractor, and I had her step in. So by that life event of me becoming a mom, being on bed rest before I had my beautiful daughter, I was able to know, kind of quick, fast, in a hurry, how to prepare myself when the disaster strikes. I will also say that I've also was putting money to the side. Building a reserve early is wonderful. Even in the beginning of your business, you feel like you have to pay the rent, the light bill, and then you don't have enough to pay yourself or put things away. Even if you put 2% away, 5% away in a bank account that you're not going to be looking at the balance to withdraw from is also a good step as well. Putting some money to the side to kind of prepare yourself financially for when life strikes, and just having a good support system. You can't do it yourself. So you should have a business coach or someone in your field, in your industry that you can trust, that you can bounce ideas off of. So if you need help, someone is in your industry who can help you keep thriving and growing.
I like that, because it takes all of us. And ladies, this dialogue is key, because our audience oftentimes, submits these questions like, oh, I've been in business for 2 years. I've been in business for 5 years, and I'm not seeing what I thought I would be seeing. We've talked before about counting the cost. What are some other unexpected things, Pam first, that people should think about when starting a business? There's a lot of unexpectancy.
Yes. So, nobody expected COVID to happen, and I am definitely, commend Jessica for weathering through that. For me, actually, it was not to say that I wanted it to happen, but what happened in my instance is that it kind of opened up the universe for me. So I am in DC, Maryland, Virginia, basically the DMV, and I have clients all over the country. But what happened is that being on Zoom and meetings like this is that it opened up a lot of a variety of people coming to me who were in different states, trying to figure out what their finances would be. Maybe they were downsized from a job, or maybe their job went away during COVID. So actually, COVID was probably my best year in business by that, because it opened up a lot more potential for me. But some of the unexpected, really things is that what Jessica mentioned before is that, what if you get sick? What if you are disabled? What if, you have a life event like I did with my dad passing away, and then maybe not being able to, going away for some period of time, taking some time off. How are you going to still operate your business and deal with your life events that may have happened? So, of course, with, if you get sick, having a disability policy in place. If you are a solopreneur or entrepreneur, you need to know, if you're not in the business, you're not making money, you still have to pay the bills. So having a business overhead policy with your disability policy as well. Having some time off of your business, taking vacations, or like I said, having life events, having some support system or leverage expertise on colleagues or, your staff that will be able to step in during that instance. So having this game plan on the what ifs happen in your business and having a game plan to go to.
Absolutely. When we come back after the break, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive, because longevity is key on this entrepreneurial journey. Not only do you have to count the cost, there's this grind that you go through before you get to survive and thrive. When we come back after the break, let's talk about it.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can see, I hope you've got your pen, pad, your digital device, and you are taking notes, because there have been some key things that even as I think about scaling up my business, I have heard today that are going to allow me to continue to have not only success, but the longevity that I am seeing. Pam and Dr. Jessica, in this world in which we live today, there's the 1 year, the 3 year, the 5 year, the 7 year, and then you can kind of breathe. And I know people are like taking a gasp and clutching their pearls because they're like, wait, what? I have to wait that long? I want to talk first about this first year and what do we consider success in the first year. I think it's important that people give themselves minor or little milestones in order for them to keep chugging along. So Dr. Jessica, in the field of medical history and medical practice, and as a chiropractor, what are some of the little wins or the small wins that you gauge saying, you know what, I got this and I can keep going?
Well, most definitely my success stories when it comes to my patients. Like I said, I had no patients and I started one by one. When I take good care of one client and then that client refers their sister, their brother, or talks about me on their neighborhood community platform on social media, that to me is a win. When I get a patient every month or every new patient that walks through the door, that's success. Somebody is seeking for me to help them who could not help them before. Those are great wins for me.
I think that those are important wins. You have to count the effort that you put in to get to the person or the people that you see. And then that allows you to say, you know what? The steps I took were the right steps. Because like, Pam said, we have those negative Nancy moments in our mind, but also that self-doubt creeps in and it allows us not to see the small wins as great things. Pam, when you think about money management and anyone that's interested, you have a wealth strategy business. Okay, so clearly people can do it. Mm-hmm. Will they want to do it? And what in your industry is considered success?
Yes. So in my industry, there's a variety of different things, of course. There's clients attained. There's assets that you gather, or what they call assets under management. So there's some key indicators there. For me, as Dr. Jessica had mentioned before, is that every client that comes in and you're able to see the success that they achieve. I still have, I guess the proverbial first dollar that I gained from my first client. It just feels good. It's just like, hey, I can do this, and somebody trusts me to do this for them, and then them referring as well. So being in the business for the last 23 years, now I can kind of see, looking back, I still have clients that have been with me just as long as I have been in business, to see the growth of their families, to see the kids graduating, to see people retiring. So those are really those milestones and those successes that I see in this business. Really, I think Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want. And so that's the success that I see. If I help people get enough of what they want, it just ultimately comes back to me.
I think that repeat business aspect is the thread that I hear you all saying. And oftentimes that initial step of, this is my client, I want to take good care of them, that speaks a volume. And oftentimes people don't, it's the old adage, people don't really care how much you know. They really are more concerned about how much you care. Let's talk about customer service. In a time where people are mean, rude, and nasty, I have almost gotten to the point where the customer isn't always right, because where they come from with that thought process is often skewed. So for each of you, I'll start with Dr. Jessica. What makes a good customer and a good client? And have you ever had to turn people away?
Well, absolutely. I have turned some folks away. I will say, with being a business owner, I can do that without fear. I'm working for somebody else. They need all the business that they can. But yes, I've had to turn people down. And what I've done is I've told them, this is not the best place for you. And I referred them to someone else. And it's okay to tell someone it's not the best place for you, because when you have someone who thinks that the customer is always right and they have a nasty attitude, that wears on you. That pulls your staff down and that pulls your energy down, and you need to be uplifted. And a good client is someone who knows that they're going to listen, right? They will receive you. You can kind of put down their fears that they may have, and you can tell that they're open to receive what that you want to do, your treatment plan, what you have going on. So a really good client is someone who is willing to listen, and you can tell they're going to be a partner in what you're doing. Because I tell my patients all the time, I can crack your back all day long. I can fix it all day long. But if you go home and do something you're not supposed to, you're going to mess up all my hard work. So this is a partnership. You have to do the things at home and do the things in here for you to get better. So that's what I would say.
So I want to give you a follow-up with that, because I think, I think that's a part of it too. We don't know when to let people go because we're starved for dollars. And oftentimes getting the security that you need in your own business comes from also laying out a pathway, not only for your clients, but for you as well, so you don't get burnout. In that scenario that you mentioned, and this is for those of you who are listening, our hairstylists, our dentists, our, coaches, our auto mechanics, anybody that's out there that has a person or people who don't want to follow the regimen of the individuals who went to college, got the skill, passed the exams, hung up the shingle, have years of service in business. Why can't we still let people go? Why do we keep holding on to clients that don't, that could be potentially harmful, especially in these days of social media? Because all it takes is one bad Yelp review, for everything that you've worked for to just go goodbye. So Jessica, why don't we let people go? Why do we keep hanging on?
Well, definitely natural is fear, right? We're scared that if we let this person go, we're not going to have another one. We're not going to be able to, the services that they're paying us, we're not going to be able to pay whatever bill that is for the business. So it's definitely fear. But when you approach it, you definitely have to approach it softly, because, one wrong review, people got something to say, it'll tear down your reputation. But when you approach the person, you sit down, you talk about the history, what's going on, let them know that you see that they're not getting better, they're not getting well. You can tell that they need something more, and you're not the person to give them that. And even those people who want to be rude and nasty, they'll be rude and nasty, but when you be open and honest and let them know that you're not the right person, they have no choice but to find someone else. So you have to get over that fear, trust yourself that better is coming, that everything is going to work out. Because when we have that fear mentality, we hold on tight to something that's not right for us. We won't allow the universe to open up and give us what we do deserve and what we will come later, because we're so hold tight to what we're scared to let go of. So don't be afraid to let it go, and don't be scared to stand up for yourself either as well. And doing that, you're standing up for yourself and letting better come.
I like that, because that's one of the reasons why many people are starting their own businesses, because they weren't getting better where they were, and they were constantly under someone else's thumb to produce. And here you've made a choice, to hang a shingle, work for yourself, and then move your business forward with, the reputation that you've built off of your skills. Pam, this entire complexity related to longevity in business. Mm-hmm. There's dollars that have to go behind it. And you talked about future planning. Wealth management and savings, I heard you say, are not the same, but you do have to put some dollars aside for year 3, 5, 10, 9, 20. Where does that extra come from? Does it come from the work you're currently doing, or you have to do, or is there more that people need to do? Like when you talk about scaling up, writing a book, being a speaker, doing a conference, going to a workshop, because you can't get it all from the one thing. There have to be other things, I believe, sometimes attached. So how do we navigate and negotiate the landscape of entrepreneurship?
Yes. So, what you look at, like you mentioned before, Dr. Jacquie, is like, how do you leverage your other skill sets? So for me, definitely main gig, so to speak, is my financial planning practice. But over the last 10 years, I've been basically growing my speaking. So that I've been leveraging that. I'll probably be adding on, some group coaching programs pretty soon, going into corporations to have a financial wellness program. So really looking at how do you leverage your main skill set and how many other things that you can add on. So these revenue of those things would produce, and do a forward projection or revenue projection. How much can I make from my practice? How much can I make from speaking? How much can I, earn from the financial wellness programs through corporations or organizations? So you look at kind of where you want to be, kind of that 10, I guess in those job interviews, where do you see yourself 5, 10, 15 years? That's where you want to look at your business. What is the ultimate game plan? And then also your exit strategy. You may not want to be doing this for, forever. Where are you going to exit out? Are you going to sell your practice, or are you going to have somebody buy your practice? Whatever it is, have a strategy outlined on those 5, 10, 15 year and exit strategy, and all of the revenue sources you can make from your skill set.
I think that what you both are saying are equally important, because oftentimes people don't know where to go and what to do. In the time that we have left in this block, there are going to be some people who say, I didn't go to college, but I do have skills. I got some college and I'm not sure what I want to do, and I'm tired of working for other people. Can people who just have passion start a business? And kind of what does that look like, Pam, from the perspective of where do they get money? Because earlier in the segment, we talked about being a double E, which is an employed entrepreneur. And there's an entire strategy for that. And we'll talk about that in the next block. But Pam, can people who don't have college backgrounds start a business, and can they be successful?
Oh, of course. College is one of those things. You look at all of the big tech guys. They went to, Harvard, they went to Princeton for, a year or whatever. And then boom, they went out and became, multi-billionaires from that. So you don't need a college degree. to be successful with business. Of course, you do have to have, the skill in what you're doing, and then also have the passion around that. And then that's where you try to figure out where you want your dollars. As I mentioned before earlier, do you want to borrow it? Do you want to borrow it from an institution or friends? Do you save up while you're still working your 9 to 5? Do you get a side hustle while do you do it as a side hustle while while you are still working? So you can kind of, test your skills and test the waters on how much you can make. I know so many people who did their main thing now as a side hustle. And when they got to the point where they were making way more than they were with their 9 to 5, they basically cut that loose. So you don't have to have a college degree. You just have to have the skill set and the business wherewithal to make it work out. And, everything will work out for that.
Absolutely. When we come back after the break, I want to talk a little bit about making dollars and cents, because sometimes it makes sense for you to step out onto your own. Sometimes it makes sense for you to just say, I'm going to do it. We'll be back in a moment after the break.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can tell, you need to have some passion, skill, some desire to start your own business. But most importantly, you have to have some wherewithal and some gumption to just get out there and take a leap of faith. Pam and Dr. Jessica, sometimes family members don't understand when you want to say or jump out into doing your own thing. It's like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Nobody in the family is an entrepreneur. But sometimes there's freedom in ownership. And being able to, really say, this is mine. And there's a level of comfortability, Dr. Jessica, in being able to run your own shop. Talk to us a little bit from the humanity aspect and the human nature of things to, this is mine. And I got me. I don't know about anybody else, but I can take care of self. And sometimes you just want to make ends meet. What does that look like for the solo entrepreneur?
Well, definitely, you just have to do it. I am that person. I'm the only person in my family who owns a business. I remember when I told my parents that I was going to do that, they looked at me crazy. How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to do that? I said, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. Right. And the beauty of ownership is that it is yours. You're going to work just as hard as you need to keep this thing running, because you don't want to look foolish in front of your people. So you're going to make sure that you put in the work, doing what you need to do, that you're saving, that you're working and scrapping for your business so that you can sustain it and have longevity in it. And being the solo entrepreneur and that ownership and that passion that you have, and also passion, resilience, drive, you're going to need all of that because there's ups and downs. But when you continue to put in the work, you keep seeing those clients, you see more money coming into the business, and you're able to make your overhead without stressing or worrying, and you're putting money to the side and you're seeing it grow and you're getting your good name out there. All of that helps you continue to grow with that self-ownership and keep pushing you forward.
So would you think it would be difficult, not just for you individually, but for a chiropractor or any other medical professional who's running their own shop? At some point, you may decide you want to scale, which in your industry would be bringing in, I won't say a partner because this says Howard Chiropractic Clinic, but bringing in another practitioner. When would you think in business is a good time to, someone would consider bringing in another person and having them on and bringing in their own clients? And then would that upset the dynamic of a business? And I ask this because oftentimes I watch hair salons. People take in too many people too fast, and then it upsets the culture of their business or their practice, and then they don't know how to undo it. So what does that look like if we're talking about scale, going from being a solopreneur to taking on one or two more practitioners?
Well, you're definitely at that point where you are seeing more business, more people coming in, and you don't have the time to service them. So, for example, my busiest times are between 10 o'clock to noon, and then I pick right back up again between 3:30 until 6. And when you're maxed out of that particular time, if you could have one more person come in to see that extra person, then it's time for you to have someone to come in. Finding the right person does take time. You have built up a patient base to where your patients trust you. And now you bring someone in, they need to give the same love, care, respect that you give to them, to your patients as well that you're bringing in. So I would definitely say you have to do your research, feel somebody's vibe. How do they handle business? How are their integrity? Getting recommendations from other people, checking their references. So a good time to bring someone is when they know that you feel like you're maxed out in your capacity and that you can have someone come help you grow your business a little bit more, because you do have to have the money to the side, because when you bring on someone, again, that's more taxes, more payroll, more dollars that have to go out the door, and you have to sustain that person because that person probably also has a family. So make sure that whoever you're bringing on is sort of like you, with the care, passion, and drive that you have, and also resilience, because that will also affect your business. So I would say those two things. Make sure you have the money, that you have the demand of clients, and then that person loves and cares for your patients or your business, just like you love and care for your business.
I think that's excellent observation. I love the way you said that, because my question for Pam, she uses this phrase a lot of times, and I've been dying to use this phrase. So Pam, you're always talking about making money moves. So let's talk about what it looks like in business to make money moves, because oftentimes people get stagnant. And so what does scaling up look like when it comes to managing dollars in such a way that they're impactful? Because wealth strategy building isn't easy, especially you mentioned people have a hard time with investments. They don't know where the money's going to be placed. They're not sure if, whoever the person they select is moving it into the, the right areas. And what does making money moves look like in your industry from a financial perspective, for business owners as well? Because we have our financial and personal related monies, but sometimes businesses need to make investments so that they can see a greater return if they have their 10 and 15-year goals about to come into play.
Mm-hmm. Yes, just like Dr. Jessica mentioned, it's that when you get to a capacity, where you're hit bandwidth for yourself, that's where you would end up teaming up or bringing in my instance, another advisor or junior advisor to take some of the clients that I'm not servicing, or I guess consider, some of the lower clients that may not meet the asset management criteria that I have, and then have a junior advisor, or even become more of an enterprise and bring on several advisors. So you look at, bringing on that person. Of course, again, you have payroll, you have, do you want to bring them on as salary? So you have a lot of decisions to make. And then what are you going to invest back into your business for that? And how much revenue how much more revenue are you going to gain, from that? Same thing with your technology. AI is real big, of course, in any aspect. Financial services is looking at AI and different technologies to bring in. So I've been evaluating certain tools and things that will may be able to bring on certain services or enhance of what I'm currently doing. And then that can also be projected revenue based on what you're spending. So if I bring in another, let's say, tax management software to analyze tax returns for clients, that will be able to be a differentiator as a financial advisor that can bring in another revenue stream, more revenue for clients and things like that. So you have to evaluate kind of the ROI on if you bring in certain aspects of your business, either a team, software, technology, anything. It has to have an ROI, on a return on investment, or it just doesn't make sense on your longer term goals and what you're trying to achieve.
Which brings me to my next question. When should people get out of business? And I know people don't want to hear us talk about that, but there is a certain period in time where you've done all you can, you put everything in it, and it's just not enough. So Pam, when is a good time for people to, I'm not saying throw in the towel, I'm saying reevaluate your business plan. So we're gonna say it in those terms so that people can palate what we're about to tell them about when is the time to have an exit strategy.
Mm-hmm. Is that a successful exit strategy, or is it, hey, I've been doing this a long time and I don't see any results out of it type of thing? So, in terms of kind of the ultimate, I guess, exit strategy, if you've been fairly successful in business, is that, how long, when you want to retire, that's the main question that I generally ask people, or make working or in your business a choice versus you have to do it. So at that point where you're like, I think I don't want to be doing this all the time, that's where you start thinking. An extra strategy is not like an overnight type of thing as well. You want to kind of ease your way into it. So if you want to, let's say, retire or exit out of your business, let's say 5 years from now, you probably start to try to unwind that in year 3 or 3 years before. So you know what you're doing to do, evaluate your business. So I've grown a practice over the last 23 years. It has value. I have to get valuations. I have to, start getting interest on buyers, and they have to get financing. So you want to give yourself a longer time horizon. If you, put it out where, let's say 5 years from now, I want to start unwinding this thing. What do you need to do in order to exit from that? The second part that you said, maybe it's just not what you want to do in exiting out of the business. Maybe, year 5 is where you wanting to give it. So if you don't have at least a clear 5-year plan to be in business, probably should not go into it for right away. If you're going to be in year 1, 2, and you're like, this is not working out, I just want to hop out, maybe it just wasn't the right skill set or the right thing that you want to do. I have some friends who have had several business probably over the last, let's say 5 years, let's say since COVID, have tried different things. So, and then one of those things may stick. So when you get to a point where you're like, okay, maybe this is not the thing that I should have been doing, maybe I try something else, then you give that your all. And, but make sure you are passionate around what you're doing and not just jumping into something because somebody told you I can make a lot of money in that. If you're not passionate, it just won't work out.
I like that. If you're not passionate about it. So Dr. Jessica, in your field, do chiropractors stop working? And when, I just ask because they work for a very long time because they're really good at what they do and people need them in their lives. So when would a chiropractor decide to, say, I've done all I can for my industry?
Definitely. They do retire, right? There's plenty of them that retire. Most of us retire well into our 60s. Okay. I joke with my patients, say I'm cracking backs until I'm 50. So, stick with me until I'm 50. But I know that I'll probably be cracking backs until I'm 60. But yes, there's an extra strategy because it's a lot of stress and trauma on our body. We're bent over people all day. We're working with folks all day. And being in business for a long time, you do want to relax. You want to enjoy the things that you want to enjoy. So when that looks like is when you know that you can, like Pam says, you can bring someone in, you can see that you're exiting and you start in the beginning, 5-10 years to bring someone over who can transition your practice out, that your patients can be well cared for, and they know that you can relax and that you've done a good job. So yes, we retire. We definitely do that.
I like that. So there's an exit strategy. There's a retirement plan in place. There's the ability for people to go. So for individuals who are just starting out, as we close out this segment, give our entrepreneurs an encouraging word. What would you say to, you can frame it any way you like. I'm just starting in business. I've been in this business for a minute. How would you like to encourage our viewers? Start with Pam. How would you encourage our viewers on their entrepreneur journey?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to quote a mentor earlier in my career is to trust the process. There are going to be hard days that you're like, I'm just going to go back and do my 9 to 5. That was a lot easier. It's too stressful. Where's my next client going to come from? All of that is going to be weighing on you earlier on, but trust the process. It will work out. I was saying this hockey. One of my other mentors has shared, it's a hockey stick. So you're going to be here. And then at some point, you're going to hook up into a hockey stick effect. And so if you don't give it your all and trust the process until you get that a hockey stick, then, it's all for naught. So trust the process.
I love that. Dr. Jessica.
I would definitely say that it's all going to work out. Definitely going to work out. You decided to do this business for a reason. You have faith in yourself that, come hell or high water, we're going to try this thing and this thing is going to work out. Like Pam said, if you trust the process, there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. You have to be resilient, you have to have faith, and you have to just keep moving. You have to put in the work, right? If you put in the work and you take care of each client like you're supposed to, if you get up, get dressed no matter how you feel, and you show up and you keep putting into work, it's going to work out. Everything is going to work out. So just keep moving forward. You have to keep moving forward.
I love that. I think that this dialogue today has given not only me, but our viewers an opportunity to really see individuals that look like us, because, you know, our audience is us. And it allows them to see that we have the desire, we have the passion, we have the ability, but we also have the fortitude to keep it moving. And I think that may be one of the things that is missing, you know, from industry in general. People just give up too easily. And so I thank you for giving those words of encouragement to help our viewers, you know, be able to say that I can sustain me in my practice and my business when I figure out mentally and emotionally how to sustain myself. When we come back after the break, I'll give my reflection.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. And as you can see, this entrepreneur's journey requires you to be all in, not halfway in, not 3/4 the way in, but all in, mind, body, and spirit. This entrepreneurial journey requires you to figure out what you want to do, get the skill set that's required to do it, bring people along your journey that are going to support you as you have your ups and downs, but also recognize to celebrate yourself and the small wins. Thank you for watching. Bye now.